Okay, guys, welcome to the last before lunch part of our event. We will be talking about the legal and the political environment around us in EU and Europe in general, how this impacts our farmers, how it impacts the industry in general. We'll be discussing obviously the taxonomy, Green Deal. We will be going a little bit further into aquaculture 4.0 and how digitalization will change our everyday. We see it in every other aspect of our industry. Absolutely major changes. Everybody who has an iPhone and like me wakes up with it in his hand and falls asleep with the iPhone in my hand. We will understand, and we have long since understood, that digitalization is going to change our everyday. Yep, I'm going to throw the card away. There's a Norwegian entertainer who does that. I might even do that myself. So in this project, this Horizon 2020 funded project, we have multiple players in multiple countries and in multiple positions around Europe and in multiple geographies, obviously, both in EU and EES. We have worked on solutions to address some of the aspects and aspirations of the Green Deal and some of the digital aspects of how to deliver the information or the reporting to document what we are doing at any given time, because there will be a lot of recording and analysis necessary to actually make our way forth. And in this Horizon 2020 funded project, this is a very important part of our dissemination to our environs, not internally in the project, but to the aquaculture industry in Europe as a whole. And that's why we are here. That's how we do it. We also have fun in this project. To help us looking into this very demanding aspect of the industry, we have a great panel with us. We have Lisbeth Jes Plesner from Dansk Aquaculture Producentorganisation. We have Silje Sveen, Senior Quality Manager at Benchmark Genetics Norway, and Thomas Bartos, R&D Director at Aqua Biotech Group in Malta. You've heard him before today. Little bit about the format today. This is a subject with a lot of knowledge latent in people around us and with a lot of opinions and a lot of questions. So I most certainly open both here on site and online. Come with your questions and comments, and we'll take them as they come up, because we think it's very important that we speak and discuss and comment in context. Yep, that's it. That's how we'll rock this show here. So I'm going to start with one quite general question, and I'm going to start with you, Lisbeth, and then we just go through and just have a general discussion. And it is more than okay to digress from the question, because, like I said, this is a complicated subject, and we have a lot of apropos and diversions. So my first question here is actually the first question that popped up into my head when I heard about the taxonomy, when that was coming on, and that is, given the taxonomy framework, let's give us the idea that taxonomy has already been designed for our industry. How can we use the present framework to move the industry ahead towards increased sustainability or towards the goals that we have set forth in Green Deal? Lisbeth, would you care to comment on that first?
Thank you for the question, and hello to everybody. It has been interesting to hear the presentation and the discussions. I think when or if aquaculture will be part of the taxonomy, then the positive things about that will be that the taxonomy is for directing sustainable investment, and in a way the aquaculture industry, if we will go for larger farm and improve technology, then it also needs investment, and for that the taxonomy can help us. Also, I think the taxonomy can help the industry by highlighting many of the good things and benefits of aquaculture, being a way of producing, environmental and climate effective food, both as it is today, but also to make some of the improvement you also have presented today. Thank you.
Silja, have any comments on that in general? How to use the current framework to move ahead?
Yeah, I can comment on behalf of Benchmark Genetics, as we are a supplier of Atlantic salmon ova to the global market. And it's very important that the framework is taking into account all the different parts of the aquaculture industry, and also in line with the production that is quite different in whole of Europe. And as we know, also in Norway, we have a big variety of producers, and so it's really important that the framework takes into account this variety, that it's possible also to be included, and it's easy also to adopt these goals, because I think there's already done a lot in line with the sustainability goals, but there will still be some issues that should be highlighted, and I really also there's a good discussion, so the goals are achievable to implement for the whole variety in the aquaculture business.
Absolutely. Thomas, the present framework, let's put it into context, frame it within our project. How can we co-opt the framework, legal framework, to move ahead with what we've been doing for the last 4 years?
Yes, I think it's first we have to a little bit explain what is this taxonomy regulation, because probably it's not clear for everyone that this is a new regulation initiative, or it's already regulation accepted for some industries, which try to classify the different industries according to their environmental performance, and will support these industries according to their environmental performance. So the regulation and the impact will come through the money, through the funding, through the banks, to this. So it's very important for the industry. Aquaculture is not yet fully classified in this regulation, but I think it was a very good move from the Federation of European Aquaculture Producers and by Lisbeth and her colleagues in the Aquaculture Advisory Council, that they were proactive and outlined how the industry can be in line with this new regulation. And I also would reflect what you just said, that we have to take care about the the big differences within the industry when we see this. And this is what we did in our project as well, that I think in terms of sustainability and environmental performance, the different types of aquaculture technologies, industries, species need different solutions. And this is what we did in the project, that we worked with really high-tech solutions, which were presented today, but we also went into the low-tech direction, let's say a little bit, and also work with the waste. So for example, what I think for the how the industry should react, that the higher value species, I'm sure, will have a very wide range of solutions, methods, answers for this. But the low-tech species, the low-value species, they have a more limited resource to answer the challenges of this new regulations. So we really need to support these industries as well.
Absolutely. There's always one question that pops in my head when I hear about green investment, and it's sort of a red flashing light for me, and that is there is a danger or there's a possibility that we will see increased greenwashing in this industry as every other industry. Would you care to comment sort of as a first one out?
And I think also that's the basis to have a certain framework. So it's not just for each company to set the framework themselves, but we need standard that we can implement in our own businesses, and also for the different businesses to share knowledge and also best practice, how we can achieve this as a whole. So yeah, really important.
Lisbeth, care to comment on greenwashing?
Also, so you can compare different, now we're talking food production, different food items between each other, so you can avoid greenwashing and probably make the right decisions. But it's difficult items, yeah. But I think still the taxonomy, if we go a little bit back to that, then we have had in FEAP, the European Producers Organization, dialogue with the EU Commission about the taxonomy, and they are not there now to implement aquaculture in the taxonomy. I think if everybody or if the countries and EU want aquaculture to develop and increase the production in the European countries, then it would be needed some investment, and there we could use the taxonomy as a tool, also for tool to avoid greenwashing.
Yeah. I want to come back to another aspect of the taxonomy, but I just would like to hear, Thomas, if you have a comment on the greenwashing aspect.
Yeah, well, I cannot add anything more than the others, but I think I would highlight that it needs to be a kind of industry framework which defines the framework. How can we be in line with the regulation, and not the companies should lead this role. Industry organizations should lead this.
And just to comment also, it's so important with transparency. So you can go behind the numbers and really see the differences between the companies, because when each company are setting their own framework, then it's not possible to really say what's the differences. So we in Benchmark have worked with putting up the OVA footprint for several years now. This is the third year. And as long as there's not a standard there, we find the numbers and we're discussing it with the customers, showing per production that we deliver to the customer, but it's really hard when you don't have the setup, the framework as a standard in the whole of the business. So this is important work.
It's also different if you have good numbers in one place. Where do you put them in context with everything else? Because you have to count your numbers in a similar way and report them in a similar way, just to be able to see where you are. You have just wait a second, Thomas. There is one from the...
Yeah, I wanted to put these into context also in some other results we've gotten from the iFishIENCi project on social acceptance, because we have been looking at the whole of the value chain. So this morning we were looking about the science in industry, but we've also asked consumers and people who eat aquaculture products in Norway, in Germany, and in Hungary about trust. And what we see is that there is a relatively high trust in the primary food producers, the farmers, and the small food producers. 57% in Norway, 64% trust in Germany, 66% in Hungary, so relatively high. But that trust decreases the further closer to the consumer we get with retailers, food industry. With retailers, 9% of the 300 Norwegians that we surveyed consumers have trust in the retailers, 9%. It's a little bit higher in Germany, 43%, and 33% in Hungary. But I think this gets also a little bit to the greenwashing, in that we can do a lot of work with R&D and to get sustainable technologies, but we have to make sure that value comes through the whole chain here, and we can talk about labels, and the issue of labels being a connection for the consumer from the science and from the trust in the producers to the consumer. So that's, I think, some interesting results that we got in these analyses that we did on social acceptance of the technology.
You had a comment.
Just to the transparency.
Yep.
And data accessibility is a key element of the taxonomy regulation, and probably IWOS also can be a system, a technology which can support the farmers to be in line with this requirement of the regulation. And I think all developments on this area will help the industry to prepare for this.
Dominic?
Yes.
Come in i bildet.
Yeah.
Come a little bit closer there.
Okay, I can talk here. Okay. No, this one? Yeah, okay, this one works. Thank you. Coming back to the EU taxonomy, I think so we are talking about what it could implies, but for me the biggest implication and is when many sectors now has their standards linked to the EU taxonomy and aquaculture not having that, it is about the access to investment. Because we know that big investors are going to use this EU taxonomy to decide also on what project and to support. And the aquaculture not having that is putting the business in a bit of a peculiar situation in competition for big investments. So I think it is one of the major things also to put in place, apart from the greenwashing and so on that you have been mentioning, but the access to investment in competition to others is something very important. And related to what some things we are doing in iFishIENCi. So tomorrow we are going to work about the waste to value and created value from waste as one of the mechanisms. And one of the mechanisms linking the aquaculture sector with other sectors exploiting possibly the waste to produce other things. And for me, the aspect of the EU taxonomy and access to investment is also to be pursued there, because it's about showing to the investor how they put money that can contribute to the valorization of and value added in different sectors jointly, aquaculture with another sector by using, for example, the waste. So I think this aspect will become very important in the future.
Excellent, thank you. I have one other spin-off question from the taxonomy aspect, and maybe you two are best to answer it. I'm not sure, I'll just jump into that. Now we have seen taxonomy has already impacted on agriculture. Are there any sort of aspects of that demands more from fish farmers today? Do you already have to report on something? Because we know we have logistics, we have agriculture, and we are quite dependent on both. Are we in a position today where we have to report on taxonomy-related aspects from other industries? Anything you know about, Silja?
Well, we already report on a wide variety in line of the GHG protocol, since we're a UK-based company. So in that case, this will not be a problem for us. And we have also made an own system, IT system, which we developed since we have a quite special production in Benchmark. So this will not be a problem for us. But as I said, there's a huge variety. And since there's not a specific framework for the businesses, this needs to be included for the different aquaculture businesses overall. So we need some time, even though time is scarce, to implement this. Yeah.
What I was thinking about, do fish farmers today have to meet some reporting needs related to taxonomy in other sectors like logistics or agriculture?
Yeah. You ask if the fish farmers today need to go for other criteria in the taxonomy for agriculture and transport. And in a way, agriculture is part of the taxonomy. And as far as I know, also transport sector, but I'm a little bit doubtful. But I think the taxonomy can really help aquaculture, but it's very important also, as Silja said, that it'll, we need some, screening criteria which can implement all the differences in the aquaculture industry. And I also think we need to be very aware of that the taxonomy is for finance and investment, and together with those we also need environmental, social standard that can be also what was said today, labels, other things. And in this setup, it's all based on the EU Green Deal and the Farm to Fork. And there, the Farm to Fork say that we need to, and I think that's important, redesign our food systems. And there, aquaculture is quite good in many of the criteria we need to be in this framework today. So therefore, it's very important to have some transparent criteria indicators, so the consumers, the buyers, can compare the different products against each others. Yeah, but important to have the taxonomy for the investment, but also labels, standards, other things for having the right knowledge about the impact of aquaculture.
I want to switch tack a little bit, and I want to discuss a little bit. Now we've talked about sort of the big picture here and how it can impact. I want to take another tack and discuss how it will impact when we come to it. Are we capable of meeting the demands of our environs in terms of better documentation and so far? So there is a lot of reporting that needs to be done, and we all know what that means actually in hard work, and we know that further back when you had intern control coming online in Norway properly, smaller fish farmers in Norway didn't have the human capacity, they didn't have the systems in place to meet that regulation. So if we look at European aquaculture in general, there's a lot of different, you can say you have a lot of different levels of organization and technology. So is the aquaculture industry in Europe capable of meeting the demands? Lisbeth, would you like to comment on that to start with? Yes, please. I saw.
Very good questions. And I think the industry is not ready yet. Not all, the whole industry, but many of the bigger companies, they are ready. And we also have this transition. I can talk from Denmark and the industry, or the countries I know, but the transition had been, small, 1 man, 2, 3 employees, and then to huger companies. They have a standard employees and other things. So I think the industry is moving that direction. So, and also for the farms, for the industry to attract investment, that will be, of course, the user companies, and they will be capable of that. As we know that many farms business have been going for certification, global gap, BAP, ASC during the last 5-10 years. It's quite new, and that's also, we call it a kind of paper tiger. It's also a lot of documentation, a lot of papers, and transparency and improvement all the time. And in Denmark, the Danish company, in the beginning, it was really hard, steep learning curve, but actually they did them, and I know you also in Norway, very, very long in this aspect and very good in doing that. So yes, we are on the way.
But there's a huge gap between, and you actually know quite well the difference between bigger companies, international companies where you work, and you also have knowledge and about the smaller companies in Norway. You yourself probably see the difference in capabilities and what systems companies have in place.
Yes, and you mentioned certifications, and I guess Global Gap is quite familiar for the whole range of businesses in Norway. And I think this standard has lifted us up to a very good level, and it's dragging us to set improvements every day in our work. So I think this certification has also been a very good criteria to grow in the aquaculture business. So, and as we speak, we have also implemented ISO 14001 benchmark. We will include it in the whole of the business. And it's not just setting setting fine words on a nice paper. You also need to set goals and objectives, and you need to put number on those goals. So, yeah, I think this is a very good measure, to put in place to help us achieve where we want to be.
Thank you. We have a comment from the sideline here, please.
Yes, it's a requirement, not a comment, but I would like to first of all introduce myself. My name is Balázs Gregosic from Hungary, from Vitafort. The Vitafort is a feed producing company in Europe and in Hungary, of course, and we are present in many countries in Europe as worldwide as well. And we have a very interesting slide in this iFishIENCi project. We did fish experimental in Laos, and for this side we have some feed industry background and some ideas about this topic, but you're talking about it, and Dorothy asked me just a little bit, add some comments. Very shortly, I would like to give you a picture why it's so important. And I can talk about now just about the Hungarian side of it and a little bit for the European Union, but not worldwide. So to understand this whole situation, which is, to be honest, a little bit far from us, from the daily work, what we are doing, feed producing, etc. It's nobody dealing with in the real life, but everybody is preparing for that. It will be a big issue, and when we're talking about it, big issue means for the companies, the SMEs, that you have to pay for that. So until that point, nobody will take it seriously. So to understand it very shortly, in comparing 2021 and 22, the world feed industry was decreased only 0.25% globally. It's not a significant number, but if we focus on Europe, it was more than 6%, which is now it's a visible number. And if you see the different animal species, then the biggest decreasing was the ruminant, of course. And the ruminant, it's because the rumen function and the emission and the methane emission, it's very important. And this is a point where you understand that why the European Union is so focused on this topic, because this number is not worldwide number, it's European Union number. And after pet food, pet food was, by the way, the highest decreasing number accordingly to the feed production in the Europe. Aquaculture was the second one. So you can see from the tendencies now that the high effect of the environment, if we're talking about it, the agriculture sector, then it's very focused on the ruminant way. So, and therefore now started to focus the Hungarian companies to prepare for that, which means that, for example, our bank background is KBC, the Belgian bank group, started to discuss with the 1,000 most significant partners in Hungary. And they have a very strong plan for that, which means there are different levels. I mentioned that there is a plan that above a certain number of employees of the company and turnover of the company, until 2024, you have to make different quotes, and 2026 and 7, and until 2030, you have to be, and they call it Fit for 55 program. Maybe you heard about that. That means that you have to 55% of the emission you have to be done, and until 2050 2050, no, I'm sorry, 2050, you have to be neutral of the climate point. So it will be very hard. And what we can see now, if you are not able that, then you have to pay for the quote. It's easy. It's quite simpler. And for example, now we can see that they started, for example, Lidl and Aldi, German companies in Hungary, they start to little bit remove the swine production from the stores, which means that can maybe substitute by fish food. So that's the way how it's working at the moment. So that's short comment what I can add if it works good. Thank you.
Highly appreciate it, and it shows that there will be an impact that we have to account for. We have literally 1 minute and 10 seconds, so I'm going to put forth a little question that we can probably discuss for a week. That's mostly to our fish farming partners here. We were talking about green loans and green investments, and we were talking about the difference of the capabilities of smaller companies versus bigger companies to document what they're doing. And is there then a danger that the big companies will get a really, really much better position to achieve future growth through easier access to green loans, and leaving the smaller companies in the wake and not giving them a fair possibility to grow? So Lisbeth, would you care to comment on that first?
I can try. Yeah, you are probably right. But also in a way, yeah, for the smaller company, also the idea, what is a small company? We see often that smaller company, it's expensive for them to go for global gap or ANC certification. So in that way, because you are paid the same if you have a farm producing 2,000 tons of fish, or if you have a farm producing 25 tons of fish. So of course, with all this documentation for, it can be environment, but also social workers, welfare, whatever. So in a way, it divided, but I think it is everywhere. But smaller fish farms, they maybe can make niche production. Still, the ecological framework in EU is extensive farming, so they can go another way. They can, buy fish on local market or other things. So I think you need this division, because for all the documentation for, if you need taxonomy and certification, whatever, it would be both economical and also will take too many man hours for the smaller companies. And so you are probably right.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah, no.
Will the smaller get a tougher life getting funding? Or
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
I do agree.
Let's hope that this system is open for the whole variety, that it's possible for everyone to achieve the goal set and the framework.
Excellent. Yeah, Thomas, you had a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment here that I think it would be necessary to. We see now that this will be a long-term program. We heard from Balázs as well. It's a long-term plan. So I think we have to start on a European level a kind of program for the smaller companies to be able to in line with this. This can include trainings. This can include research and development and innovation activities, which is our area a little bit. So we have to be prepared for this on a whole industry level. And the whole EU level as well. So I think now we have a kind of harmonized implementation of the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund, Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund from this period. So let's include these elements into these programs on a national level as well, and provide all the support for the small farmers as well to be in line with these requirements.
And this was all we have time for today. Thank you all for your contributions, your questions, and obviously your answers. Special thanks to Lisbeth, Silja, and Thomas. Thank you so much for spending time with us and contributing. My final words here today is that I hope that the taxonomy the Green Deal, and we who sit here can become a part of the tide that lifts all boats. So have a wonderful day. Thank you.